Yeah. Whoa.
What's going on, everybody? Yes, indeed. This is Dr. Chris Featherstone here for another episode of UnSKripted. It's Tuesday nights. You're about to, you know what that means. We're about to get ready to rock and roll UnSKripted. SK Nation, you know what to do. Put your comments on the chat. If you want your comments live on the screen, go ahead and send that super chat. But for now, we got a special guest with us in the center square. We've got former multi-time hardcore champion. He was the champion of all of Europe as well. And he was dressing up as someone from Transylvania and Etoile and other European states. I thought that was really cool when he was European champion. He would actually be European gimmicks. So that was really
also
cool.
An avatar.
Yes, he was. He was also an avatar. He was a Leaf as well. He was a Leaf. Yes, indeed. Yes. This guy's Al Snow, former WWE Tag Team champion as well.
I brought in my clown head.
Yes, your clown head. Yes. What does everybody want? What does everybody
clown
need?
Head?
Yes, indeed.
So,
yes,
Al,
indeed.
we're so glad that you're with us here. So glad you, because I know you've been doing a lot of these and you've been getting a lot of the same questions. But I'm going to start you off with a bang here. Okay, He's disappeared. Now he's gone to another box.
He's avataring
us.
Switched.
Just like that.
There you go. He's back in the middle.
Ishkabibble.
Sandwiching. So what I wanted to ask you is something that I mentioned to you a few days ago when we were setting this up. Is I'm an old school type of guy. You're an old school type of guy. This wonderful show that's getting critical acclaim everywhere, Wrestlers, on Netflix. I mean, what a great platform to be. Not everybody gets on that. But what you're doing is what and the people in the wrestling business never really did, is that you're opening the bag of tricks there. You're breaking kayfabe. How hard was it for you to finally do that?
It was very hard. I'm very, I've made it pretty clear that, I understand the unspoken agreement that's always been between the audience and the wrestlers. We know that here in the United States alone, that since 1940, audiences have known that wrestling is predetermined, and you know, we all agree that, you know, we as the performers are not going to rub it, and as the audience, they agree that, hey, we're going to go along for the ride and have fun. And that's why we've had, you know, people by the thousands pay to continue to see those events, even when they knew things were kind of predetermined. But and I don't, you know, I always liken it to like when you watch The Wizard of Oz. You know, everything was colorful until you got to the end of the movie and you pulled back the curtain and you found out it was just a short little old man, you know, cranking dials and turning knobs and pulling chains, and all the magic was gone. And so I'm not real keen on doing that, but I felt like I could trust the director Greg Whiteley and the crew from BBC America treat the business with respect and to show enough that if you're a wrestling fan, I really sincerely hope that it gives a new appreciation and respect for the wrestlers and the wrestling business that I think is always so sorely lacking, you know, from outside of our world. And I hope that if you're not a wrestling fan, that, you know, it generates an interest and a desire to maybe, if nothing else, just follow the talent and see where their careers go because you care about them, but it still involves you and gets you to watch wrestling, and we grow the audience for the business,
Yeah.
you know, to a much greater. I feel like with what they've produced, I really feel like there's a good chance that that'll happen.
Al, you made it very clear in the beginning of episode one, as far as yes, you know, the show did break a fourth wall as far as just getting into the realness of, like, you know, HollyHood Haley J and things like that, and
Yeah.
other wrestlers. And you know, it's interesting because it does show that it is a character that she's portraying, and it gives her life and things like that. But you still made it very clear, which I respected heavily, that you did this. You're like, look, there's baby faces and there's heels. This is what the baby faces do. This is what the heels do. And so when I watched that, I was like, yeah, this is breaking the fourth wall, but it is very clear that you're letting, you know, these students know, these wrestlers know, the art and science of pro wrestling. Why is it so important to allow, I mean, to really teach the OVW roster that, and we see so much gray area in a lot of other pro wrestling companies?
Uh, it's a lost art.
Yeah.
You know, everything that we have uh, was passed down from generation to generation because there was always an older generation that was there to kind of shepherd the next one in,
Yep.
and held them accountable from a not just from an art, but from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't my opinions. These are actually what, you know, no matter what, how you frame a story, whether you write it on a piece of paper, you create a book, you do a screenplay, you act it out on stage, you know, you do a comic book. The aspects of those don't change, and that is you have to have an antagonist, you have to have a protagonist, you have to have some kind of challenge in a context within the challenge takes place, that the antagonist keeps the protagonist from achieving. The protagonist has to be a character that the audience relates to and wants to live vicariously through. Otherwise, the antagonist is useless, you know, and then you have to always tell a story, and, you know, to really involve an audience, and not just the core wrestling audience, but the general audience. I mean, you know, a good example that I cite is if you look at any territory back when they were regional territories, you know, when wrestling was nationally really hot and really popular. You go back to the late '90s and the early 2000s, the Attitude Era, when it was extremely popular. The one thing that drove that was when the casual audience got caught up in
Yeah.
it too, and the only thing that catches that audience is that you can have characters, of wrestlers that you could turn to your friends and family. And let's be honest, we've all done it. hey, you got to watch this show. There's this guy. He's A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
You know exactly who they are. You know what they stand for, and you know what they'll do to win and what they'll do not to lose. And you can believe in them, not in what they do. You believe in them, and therefore you do because of that belief in them. And it allows you to then believe in the context of it being a competitive situation, and that those wins and losses really have some kind of a consequence to them.
I likened you to a Broadway director. When I'm watching the show, you're the director or the director of the TV show. You're producing it, directing it. What made you go? What did you ever think you would be in a role like that?
No.
Training, directing. How did this happen?
It just kind of sort of did. I started a wrestling school back in 1990 in Lima, Ohio, of all places. I did really well.
Fellow Ohioan.
Enjoyed a lot of, enjoyed a
With
lot
Columbus.
of success. Oh yes, two hours northwest.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed it. And then Jim Ross knew of my background and of training and things like that, and kind of always peripherally got me involved with the developmental system to some degree or another. We then came and, they approached me about Tough Enough. And then, they said, hey, we want to send you down to Louisville, Kentucky to OVW and basically, run the developmental program there. And, I got the opportunity to come down and to do that and really, and then because Jimmy at that time, Jim Cornette was affiliated, was doing the writing and the booking and directing and producing of the television show. When he got relieved of his position, they brought in Paul Heyman at first, and he got brought back up to, the main roster for ECW. And then Greg Gagne they tried Greg Gagne for a while, and somehow just it evolved into it. And then I used it as an aspect of also allowing me to train the wrestlers so that they better understood, what they really were wanting to try to learn and why. And then it just went from there, and then I've been able to really work with a lot of young talent, amazing talent, and help them. And then because of the aspect of being involved on the creative side of things, I've really been able to, with those talent, to tell really awesome stories that audiences really care about and get really caught up in, and really, because everything we do, the magic of wrestling, the real magic of wrestling is that it's unlike the type of entertainment in that we're only working towards a moment. If I'm wrestling a match, I'm literally, from the moment I walk out of that curtain, I'm literally working to that final moment that I'm going to make that audience feel something as strong as possible, whatever that is I want, and that moment only lives in that moment. Record it, you can, and you can replay it, but it'll never be experienced the same as it was with you and that audience at that time.
Yeah.
And then no matter what I do on TV, no matter how many weeks I tell of a story, no how many months I tell of a story, they're all to work towards just a moment that I can get an audience to believe as more and to feel something and experience something that they just could not in any other way. And that's the real magic of wrestling, is that you're only limited by your own imagination and creativity. You can do it any way you want. And unfortunately, these generational transitions, we lost them about 20, 25, 30 years ago, I think, where too many of the older generation got out and too many of the young got in and were unsupervised and undirected. And then you lost that communication. Well, now it's all about the what. It's not about anymore. And those moments now are reduced to, they reacted, they made noise, as opposed to that you had an earth shaking moment that, made people erupt. So
Yeah,
know,
you talked about a pop on episode 1 as far as just the sexual connotation to it,
it
and it's
is.
interesting that you said that because I think of storylines such as foreplay, right? And
Yeah.
then the culmination of it is that pop that you talked
Yeah.
about. Why do you think that people are wanting the orgasm, as you were saying? There's Vince Russo introduced me to a segment that you and him do where y'all just talk about just random, ridiculous, just moments that of wrestlers, indie wrestlers looking for pops and stuff like
Yeah.
that, just without any stories, just matches
Right.
and just the wackiest thing. And I thought about something. I recently saw something within probably a few days ago, and I thought of you and Vince. There was this guy at this indie show. He had his elbow pad and he
Yeah.
put he put lighter fluid on his elbow pad,
Yeah.
took
So
a
that,
match, lit the elbow pad, had a flaming elbow, and he did an
Yeah.
elbow drop, and that was it. I mean, that was the
Yeah.
spot. You know what I mean? So why do
Yeah.
you think, Al, you've been in the business for so long, why
Mhm.
is that foreplay gone so much and people wanting that moment so quickly so much nowadays?
yeah.
Because they're never taught the proper way to
Mm,
do it. You know, it sounds crass to say, but wrestling is very much like sex.
mm.
Like you said, the foreplay and the
What is the
build up, and
proper way, in
well,
your mind?
you
What's the
know,
proper way?
well, you have to first and foremost, we'll use the Swiss Army knife of wrestling words, and that's gimmick. The gimmick of a match is first, you have to teach your audience, okay, here's how I win. So and that's the objective. Though you've got to teach that audience that by how to win a singles match is pinfall submission. So now, as the match goes along and one person's shoulders are getting closer to that mat and staying longer, that therefore creates heat.
Yeah.
It creates the need, the want, the desire by the audience to see that person who's looks lose to turn that around. That's building that want, and then it's up to the performers. The heel allows the babyface to try to give the audience what they're wanting, and then the heel takes it away. It's literally a game of keep away, or sexually teasing, bringing them to the brink, pulling it back, bringing them to, and you have to learn that skill to where if you do it too much, you, like when you were a kid, you would just, screw you, you're not going to give it to me anyways,
Yeah.
and that
Exactly.
happens.
That's true.
But if you do it and you give it to them at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
then you get them to pop. They literally erupt. And there's nothing like Rush
Mm-hmm.
in comparison. Now, if you want the real heat, you want the real ticket selling heat, right? What you do is you make them go, and just when they're at the height, you take it away.
Mm.
And now those people cannot stand the guy that took away what they were dying to have,
Right, right.
to come back again in greater numbers, because they feel and anticipate that if they do, there is that chance that what they were given, they were almost going to have, now the good guy will be able to do it in spite of the odds. And and when he does it, they do it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's works, and that's been lost. Now it's all about what people do, and I explained that if you don't work the gimmick of that match, there is no way to tell a story. If there's no way to tell a story, there is no way to build that want, that need, that desire, and then get that release once it's achieved.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Bill can back me up on this. It is unquestionably the easiest match to generate heat because you visually can see it. You cut off the ring, you put one person in jeopardy, and now they have to visually, the hands get closer and then take them away. Hands get closer, take them away until what we call a hot tag, because the heat's on the tag.
Mm-hmm.
They tag and they start to build towards the pop because they think now things are going to turn around. The fresh partners in, and now he's going to be able to turn and, you know, squelch the jeopardy that his other partner was put in from the two guys that were working together. So, you know, how many times have we seen a simple concept like that? Now it becomes two singles matches, or it becomes literally two tag matches. They're more focused on what and their opportunity to do it than they are on working as a fluid unit of one team trying to beat the other. And that's the real story that you were trying to tell, you know,
Right.
and that applies to every single match. That no matter, you can always break it all down to, because again, at the end of the day, the audience doesn't want to believe in what you do, and they will believe in who you are, and that's been, and I think Bill can back me up on this too. That's been true in the '60s, in the '70s, in the '80s,
Absolutely.
in the '90s. It never changes, because do you know why it never changes? Because there's only one thing that's fake about wrestling. There's only one thing that we're ever selling to an audience, and that is the finish. We're just selling the finish and who is, so that we can then use who that wrestler is to tell a story. It's no different. Every other sporting event now copies what wrestling has done for decades so well, and that is they sell in boxing. Mayweather and McGregor. They sold who they were, and now you want to see who's going to win. That was the consequence of the fight. If it's football, it's one player on one team that they focus on against the other player, and they create some story and they create stakes so that you care about who's going to win or lose.
Well, the greatest one at that, of course, was
same thing.
Muhammad Ali was the greatest at that.
Yes.
He admitted that he watched Gorgeous
And he took it from-
George when he was growing up, and he knew how to promote, sell tickets, and is he going to win? Is he going to get beaten? Is he going to get whooped?
Yeah, and let's face it, whether it's wrestling or the value of a fighter or a performer is one thing. You can be the greatest boxer on the face of the planet, but if no one watch you, you are never going to get booked to fight. Yep. You're never going to get those main event fights. You're never going to get the shot at the heavyweight title. And you know why? Because we can't draw money with you. You might be able to whip every single person on the planet, but if we can't market you, we can't promote you, and we can't draw with you, you're not getting booked. Yeah. Well, no matter how much of it is an actual competition or a work, we're not booking you because you're not going to draw. And that, at the end of the day, is what it comes down to. And,
it's business.
It's a business. And, every company these days, I feel, markets to a niche audience of just the audience. Where before, especially with Vince McMahon, he marketed his company to the casual audience as much as possible. And that's where the real money lies. And the only way you do that is by having a guy, an average person, sit down on their couch, flip to the channel, notice somebody on TV, and recognize them as either someone they feel they're similar to or someone they think they know that's like that. Mm-hmm. And now they can relate to who that person is, and they can understand what's going on.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. It. All right, let's we got about 5 minutes to address some of these questions over here.
Sure.
On the chat. How did the Netflix deal come to be, and what was the best part about working in OVW? What is the best part about working in OVW?
Well, the best part's working with all the young men and women, getting the opportunity to really try to help them. And it sounds corny, but I mean, I really feel like that's going to ultimately be my legacy. All the people that I've trained and helped break into the business or reach another level. And I'm very proud of that.
It's not corny.
The way the Netflix thing happened it literally was a 1 in a million shot. My one partner, Craig Greenberg, he and his wife knew, they went to high school with a executive with BBC America. And she came back into town shortly after he bought into the company. They were talking. He kind of pitched an idea. One thing led to another. I mean, the stars had to align because the BBC got interested. Then they were able to interest Greg Whiteley, who was the director of Cheer and Last Chance U, who's just, and then with him on board with the project, they then went to Netflix, and they were actually successful in being able to sell them on the idea, and they bought into the show. And a large part of that, I think, is because of Greg Whiteley being attached to it. And then they showed up, did a teaser tape, showed back up, did a teaser tape. Netflix agrees to do it. Now they're going to, when are they going to start filming? Don't know. They show up last May, the last week of May, and they stayed and filmed like 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day until the end of August. And then it was, when's it going to air? Well, it's probably going to air in January. Well, now it's probably going to air in April. Well, now May. Well, now it looks like not until October. Well, nope, now it's September. Oh, crap, it did. It aired. So, I mean, it had to have been fate, because it just, for all of it to fall together was just amazing. And I have to emphasize, this is not a reality show. Like, this is a documentary. I mean, there's nothing scripted in it, or, they edit to help tell a story so an audience can follow along. But what you see is what you see. The people, the personalities, everything. That's what really,
Yeah, the cameras are fly on the wall, so to say.
Yes. And when they're around like that, so you're there with them so much, they just become part of the furniture. You don't even, and stuff will happen, and then right after it happens, you'll realize, oh shoot, they were here, or you'll realize, oh, I forgot my mic, which I can't tell you how many times I went to the bathroom with that thing on, and I was like, oh, sorry, because I forget to turn it off, because it's just time,
By the way, I never heard you, in all the years I've known you forever, I've never heard you use the F-bomb so much in my life.
Yeah, I know. I do quite a bit on the show.
It was pretty high, pretty heavy. Thoughts
but you forget about him being there, so you get the real people.
Thoughts on Haley J present at WWE tryouts with Mandy Ranowski this week?
I think I saw Haley from day one. I thought she had an amazing amount of charisma. She had a very strong personality. I've always thought she had a lot of talent and potential, and she's just very young and very immature, and I just don't want her to shoot herself in the foot. You know what I mean? You know, if it doesn't work on this tryout, I know she'll get another chance. I know, she's more than capable of going up there and taking advantage of that platform and, elevating herself to be a star.
Yeah.
So you still have a great pipeline into the developmental system in WWE.
Well, we've not really, I've not really had much communication with WWE, just off and on, here and there,
right?
Sporadically, but I think they see what we're doing. I know they watch what we're doing. I know that, and I think they, it was no coincidence that the minute that the trailer aired, it was like a day or so affected, because, and I'm sure they probably got an advanced screening from Netflix with their kind of pull and, connections. So, they saw her on there, and I'm sure they had a definitive interest.
And different than, 2001, 2002, when we saw Cena, Batista, Brock, Orton. OVW is not presenting itself nowadays as a feeder system. It's a standalone entity, correct?
And when I was down there with OVW with WWE, I always wanted to make it so, and we did. It takes a process. It takes I'm sure Bill can agree, it takes a very long time to build a wrestling audience, no matter what your resources are. You have to get your talent, your roster on to understand a vision and a direction and a style that you want to present and want to sell. You've got to get your audience educated, because wrestling is, you control the audience. The audience doesn't control you, and that's another thing that's been lost. Now the audience is a performer, and it's always the performer dictates the audience, and you educate them to like or dislike whatever you want them to believe or disbelieve, whatever you want them to within the context of what you're presenting.
Yep.
And if you do it well enough, then when the minute they walk through that door or they turn on that channel, they can suspend their disbelief in that world and then get to know the characters and the consequences of actions, and they can get themselves involved in the drama that unfolds, within, because you're going to create a conflict based on either personalities or wants and needs and desires. And that conflict has to be resolved in the ring. And, somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. Behave while we're doing it like, we've got to watch a foot race and literally see somebody falling behind as somebody's taking the lead and has to now catch up when we want to cheer so that they don't lose. That has to take place, because if it doesn't, it's not, it's not entertaining.
Yeah. Time to plug your stuff. Before you do that, someone is asking you about your YouTube stuff. Any chance of a match of the week, MOTW, I guess that's match of the week, or the best matches playlist on the OVW YouTube? Show production quality seems really good, but the YouTube tough to navigate. Have a nice day.
I that's the YouTube stuff above my pay grade. I just work on getting men to fake fight each other in their underwear every week. So,
very nice, very nice.
I've got to make sure that I got the whole theme of wrestlers on Netflix by asking you one question: is wrestling fixed?
I didn't know it was broken.
Thank you. I was
nice alley-oop. Very nice alley-oop. Yes, I'll let them know about the wrestlers on Netflix and all things OVW.
Yeah, if they want to check out OVW, they can go to ovwrestling.com. And if they want to watch it on a weekly basis, we're live every Thursday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. live. We're outside of WWE and AEW. I think we're the only other company that does live television. And excitement about it when it's live. 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Fight TV. That's probably one of the easiest ways to access it nationally. We're locally, we're on, a bunch of broadcast channels regionally. And then we have a lot of national networks. They're not streaming networks. They're actual cable and broadcast networks, YTA, Sports Action Channel. Game Plus is the only streaming network, and then RCN and Lily Network. All combined, we're at about 100 million homes from Canada to Puerto Rico, Guam, Virgin Islands, and Bahamas. And so you can catch us somewhere.
Are you going to tour?
But
to some of those?
I'm not sure right now because we don't have the handle it. But Fight would be the easiest if they're interested in learning to wrestle. We're the only accredited by the State Office of Proprietary Education as a trade school for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, and broadcasting in the world, and that's OVW Academy. You can go to ovwacademy.com. If you want to follow me on social media, you can go to the Real Al Snow on Facebook Talk. And if you're interested in me any further, I have my book out, and it's self-help. It's on Amazon.com, and it's life lessons from the bizarre professional wrestling career of Al Snow. I make a lot of funny stuff in it. So tell a lot of funny stories.
Speaking of tour, maybe we'll do a OVW tour to Transylvania.
Yes, I would love to go to Transylvania. I actually have a Al Snow Wrestling Academy over in Romania.
Very nice.
Wait a minute. Now you just cued me. You just cued me for listen to them. Children of the Night. What music they made.
Very nice. We got Al Snow. We got Bill Apter. I'm Dr. Chris Featherstone. It's been a pleasure as always. This is UnSKripted. Have a good night, everybody. So long.